Hello and welcome, and it's great to have you with us today. A new sports and entertainment facility under construction now on the old St. Elizabeth's grounds in Southeast. It would serve as a practice facility for the Washington Wizards and home court for the Washington Mystics, as well as hosting concerts and other cultural events. Plans are to open that facility in August of 2018, only now there are some snags in the works. Here to talk about this and some other issues facing the city is D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson. Welcome back, Chairman. Good to see you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So ground was broken on this new facility last month. We're seeing some delays and cost overruns pop up already. And you have been critical, Councilman, of the portion of the price tag that the city is chipping in. Talk a little bit about these expenses.
Sure. I'm supportive of the project, but I've been very questioning of what the cost is and who's bearing it. And to be clear, the city is paying 100% of the cost. The way it was announced was that it would cost roughly $50 to $55 million, that the sports team would pay roughly $5 million, but the $5 million that they're paying is actually the rent. And they're just paying the rent all up front. So really it's entirely being funded by the city, some by direct funds, some by the fund that we have at the convention center. Legislation was introduced last week that would cap how much we spend. And I think that's a legitimate concern, and we're going to have a hearing on it, a joint hearing actually with the Committee on Finance and Revenue. The city has a very rich record of overspending its budgets, and I think it's fair to say, what are we going to spend, and are we going to stick to it? Are we going to treat the budget as that is how much is available, or are we just going to treat it as a sort of a casual document?
Why does the city feel that this is a good way to spend money? Is this facility going to generate revenue for the city down the road? I mean, will you have, say, a portion of the ticket sales? Is that going to go into the city coffers?
Yes, the ticket sales will go into the city coffers. The facility is going to be the practice facility for the Wizards. It will be the home facility for the Mystics. There will be a new, I think it's called a Class B team, basketball team. All of the major league basketball teams are moving in that direction. I think it's required by NBA. And then there are going to be maybe as many as 100 nights available for other programming. It could be concerts. It will be a 5,000-seat facility. There is not such that size facility in the district, so it will meet need in between, let's say, the Verizon Center and smaller venues. There is the opportunity to make money, but more than that, it will jumpstart economic development at the St. Elizabeth's East Campus, which we very much want to see developed, and it will also incentivize more economic development east of the river. So there'll be a lot of spin-off benefits to it.
Initially, in the construction phase, there will be construction jobs available.
Yes.
Down the road, will there be any permanent jobs from this?
Yeah, because the city will be, through the Events DC, which is the name we give to the arm of the convention center that runs these venues, Events DC will be managing the facility. Yeah, there will be money. I don't know that we're going to make money off of it as in a profit. It's quite possible that we will. But again, there are economic benefits. To me, the question is whether we're going to spend $50 million or we're going to spend, I don't know, $60, $65 million. And if we're going to be adding to the cost, we should know that now, and we should also evaluate whether the city is going to continue to pay 100%.
Were there any concerns initially with this location because of possible crime in the area? Was that a concern initially?
I don't know that really is a concern. I'm familiar with the area. It's part of St. Elizabeth's now. It's right next to the Congress Heights Metro. I think that not only is it not an area that I know of as being a crime-infested area, but I also think that with the additional activity that this is going to bring and other development in St. Elizabeth's, that will have a very positive effect.
While we're talking about economic development issues, another exciting project, Walter Reed. Tell us what's going on there.
Well, Walter Reed's an interesting project because it's a federal facility closed as part of the federal base closing process. Therefore, there's a process that the city has to go through. We're going to require something like 2/3 of the site, not all of it, not over to 16th Street, just along Georgia Avenue, but about 2/3 of the site. We're going to pay the federal government for the property and then be repaid by the developers who are going to develop it. So the city, we're putting a lot of effort into guiding how the development will take place. I mean, basically we're setting forth what the development will look like, but we're not paying for it.
Another issue that the city's dealing with right now is homelessness and homeless shelters. And to replace the DC General shelter that closed, the city is moving in a new direction, opening up 7 smaller homeless shelters throughout the city. That's the plan. Tell us what is the latest with that.
Well, the latest with it is that the council, the Committee of the Whole, which I chair, will have a hearing March 17th, where we will get testimony, invite testimony from citizens across the city. I think we're going to see that there is some controversy around specific sites. I think the mayor's strategy, which is to present the sites as a package, is a good one, because otherwise we start pitting one ward against another or one neighborhood against another, and that won't work. But I do think there are legitimate questions that need to be answered with regard to cost. I think the cost for some of these facilities looks like it might be far more than we should be paying. I do want to remind folks that we're talking about families. We're talking about families that have fallen into homelessness and that can get out of homelessness with some help. And that's what these shelters are about, is temporary placement. The goal is no more than 60 days. Right now the city is not meeting that goal, but it will be short-term for families.
So is this existing housing that would be changed and converted into a homeless shelter? Like, are we looking at say a townhouse in the middle of this row that we're going to change into a homeless shelter?
Well, there's 7 sites. A couple of them I believe are vacant. A couple of them have existing structures on them that are going to have to be completely renovated, not just modernized, but renovated. I know a couple doesn't add up to 7, but it's a mix. It's a mix of renovating, altering existing buildings, or just building brand new buildings. Some will require, I think 3 will require zoning approval, and others are a matter of right.
It was hard enough to sort of oversee what was going on at DC General in one location. How do you feel about staying on top of everything that's going on in 7 separate facilities scattered all over all 4 quadrants of the city?
It's an interesting question. There are a couple of ways to look at it. One is that you could say, well, it's pretty efficient to just pack 250, 270 families into one facility. Actually, DC General's been a mess, and there's nobody who says that that's well run, and everyone says that it's overcrowded, and not just because you've got too many people for the number of beds. I don't think that's the issue at all. It's that there are too many families in one place. The research shows that working with homeless families or individuals in smaller shelters is far more effective. You end up getting a lot of benefits from a smaller shelter that you don't get with a larger shelter.
Has this been tried in other cities? Are you modeling your plan after something you've seen elsewhere that has been successful?
This particular plan is not modeled after other cities. I mean, we're just basically taking the 270 beds at DC General and breaking them up among 7 sites. There's not a model there. There are support services that are modeled after other cities. We have a program called Permanent Supportive Housing, where the goal is you put a family or an individual in housing first and then provide services, rather than they have to clean themselves up and get a job before we'll get them housing. And that model has shown, that is, of housing first and then services wrapped around, has been shown very effective in other cities. And we're doing it here, and it's effective here.
Seems to me I've heard about something similar to this. It wasn't with a shelter, but I believe it was with low-income housing mixed in with other residential areas. And I think Alexandria tried this, and it was very successful. And they found that there were benefits both for the neighborhood and also for the families living next door to properties that were not Section 8 properties.
Yes.
And there was kind of a spillover effect. Everybody kind of took it up a notch with their stoops and, you know, the way they maintained their properties, that kind of thing. Well,
it's different in its development as opposed to homeless services, but it's similar in that the concentration of poverty, or the concentration of individuals who are in families who are in need, can have a consequence that's greater as a group than it would be in smaller numbers, and that would be the similarity.
Yeah. So March 17th is the next hearing on this.
Is the hearing on
and
that.
And then how soon might we be proceeding with building or converting some of these properties?
Well, the council will have to approve the legislation, and I'd indicated to the mayor that I'd like to see it come before the full council in the middle of April. Now, that's assuming that questions such as whether the financing is reasonable, that those questions are resolved. The mayor's goal is to have DC General empty, I have to do the math, I think it's in 2018, meaning by the fall of 2018.
So the cost is a big concern of yours. What kind of figure, what are we talking about here?
Well, in gross numbers, right now we're spending, I think, what I saw was that for the families at DC General, something like $18 million, and with these new shelters, it'll be more like $22 million. Now, my dollars are off a little bit, but the order of magnitude is right. So it'd be a little bit more expensive. That's okay if that expense is from services, additional services. But if what we're doing is we're taking a building that costs, let's say, $12 million, and we are over 10 years spending, I don't know, $20 million. Now, I'm just pulling those numbers out, but I'm hearing this from folks that we are more than paying the cost of the buildings that we won't own. Then that raises concerns whether these deals are structured correctly. That's what we'll be looking at.
All right. Well, we're coming back in just a minute, and
Sure.
We'll be talking about something very interesting. How does months off for paid time leave sound? If you live in the district, it might be coming your way. We'll talk with Council Chair Phil Mendelson about that and some other issues in just a minute.